All right, let's get things started. Hi, everyone. My name is Tori Kinlick. I am the Director of Marketing at Vitalware, and I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, The 6 Reasons Healthcare Solution Vendors Use Vitalware, Medical Necessity, and Other Regulatory Content. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. And although our event today is scheduled for 60 minutes, our plan is to present about 20 minutes or so worth of content and have about 10 minutes of Q&A at the end, and then give you some time back for your busy schedules. Before we start, just a couple of minor housekeeping items. First, all attendees have been placed on mute in order to eliminate any background noise. We encourage you to interact with our speaker throughout the presentation by typing your questions and comments into the Q&A panel, not the chat panel, please. The Q&A panel is the one that we will be monitoring, and assuming that there is a handful of questions that we both get to today, as well as a couple that we might not, we will be following up the event with any answers to any questions that were posed today. And so if it's in the Q&A panel, we will make sure to get to it. Your questions will be answered following the presentation as time permits. And even if we don't get to all your questions live, we will post a copy of the questions and answers, as well as a recording of the presentation on the webinar page, usually within the next couple days after the event itself. And we will send an email reminder following this presentation with a link where you can find everything. So now on to the good stuff. Today we have 3 presenters from the Vitalware family. We have Kelly Cowan, the Vice President of Channel Partnerships, Jennifer Bishop, the Vice President of Product Content, and Kelly Jorgensen, the co-founder of Vitalware. And now I am going to hand things off to Kelly to get things started. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending today. I'm going to touch a couple of things before I turn it over to Jennifer and get into the content about Vitalware and our medical necessity edits. Give you a brief overview of Vitalware and a little bit of background of medical necessity. We were founded in 2011 with a group of the original founders of CodeCorrect. CodeCorrect, we were one of the first companies in 1999 to take the coding regulatory content to the internet. And a byproduct, we were one of the first ones to take the LMRP data and put it in an environment where you could validate medical necessity. In 2008, we got bought by MedAssets, and in 2010, 2011, we've got the band back together to really focus around how ICD-10 was going to affect the mid-revenue cycle world. Today, we have over 900 hospitals using our Charge Master tool and our Vital Knowledge application, which is our regulatory content application, where most of our hospitals users have access to our code validate feature. Vitalware is focused on mid-revenue cycle, whether it's Charge Master, charge capture, meaning what's missing on your claim form from the charge perspective, coding, pre and post-bill auditing. We applied for class ratings back in 2018, so our first year we were actually rated best in class for 2019 and 2020, and we're very proud of those 2 years running and hopefully a third with the help of our customers. Medical necessity. When we started Vitalware, we firmly believed that ICD-10 was going to fundamentally change the way CMS is going to manage their payment policies. We knew that we needed to build a different engine, a better engine than we had when we were CodeCorrect, to be able to address the complexities that we knew were going to happen with the code specificities and just what we were hearing from CMS. Today, we have over 80 category edits. And what I mean by that is logic loops. Inside a policy, there may be 5, 6, 7 different logic loops that deal with a variety of clinical scenarios that we have to capture in a way to be able to present whether a particular claim is going to meet medical necessity. In ICD-10, there was only 8 logic loops we used back in the old days. So a new engine is important. And that's where I think our differentiator is in the marketplace, where we're able to get down to these levels of complexities. We kind of like to say it's 3D versus what's out there typically in 1D. So it gets us to that, and you'll see that from Jennifer. Why M&E is at our medical necessity edits at our core? Of all the transactions that take place in Vitalware on a daily basis, and we have over, like I said, 900 hospitals, 26,000 users, the medical necessity checking is our most used tool. We hear from our hospital customers and users from all different departments that the code validate tool is used to make sure their encoder, their ABN tool, their patient counting system, and their scrubbers results are correct. So we're pretty proud of what we've done, and I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Bishop so she can share with you how we're doing this and how we address the policies. And from there, Jennifer.
All right, thanks a lot, Kelly. So let's get right into this. What we hear, content is king, right? And what we hear over and over again, there's two parts of that, right? Timeliness, or at least two critical parts of that, which are timeliness and accuracy. So one of the first things that we like to point out is that we update these weekly. Medicare releases changes to the edits every Thursday. And every Thursday, we go in and we update our edits, and those are out and live by end of day Friday at the latest. So what CMS has, we are current with it, as current as it's possible to be. And that's hugely important, right? Because they change things constantly. They go forwards in time, they go backwards in time. They stay current. If you don't have the latest information, it's very easy to be out of touch very quickly. So we make sure that you have the accurate results and the accurate explanations for everything on a weekly basis. Not only do we make sure that the edits are correct, but also on a weekly basis, as soon as we finish updating all of the edits, we make sure that all of our users get pushed out what we call a vital coverage alert. And what that does is detail all of the policy changes for your particular MAC or MACs. It includes the NCD data as that's updated, because that could be at any time. And that comes right to you based on your preferences. So if for some reason you only wanted to see code changes, we could push that out to you from a particular MAC. Or you could see it all if you're just, you know, if you're a content person that likes to know everything that's out there, we can do that as well. Something importantly that we do is to eliminate all the unnecessaries. So if anyone is looked out on a weekly basis at the policy changes, a lot of times CMS will push out a lot of what looks like changes on the surface, but when you actually dig into it, maybe there were no changes at all. Maybe it was just an annual review that they're required to do. Maybe it was a change to remove a semicolon and replace it with a comma. When those cases, again, we go through all this and we don't push out an alert to you if it was just a comma change or really no change at all, so that you can quickly and easily see what the pertinent changes are. So I just pulled up an example here. I have all of these emails come to me because I like to keep an eye on things. So this is an example of what you would get. This is, you know, one that was just sent out a couple of weeks ago. It is in particular for national government services. So we've gone through and done the hard work of here's the title, here's the number. You can see that this is a Part A contract change effective June 1st. And what they did was to add this diagnosis code. So, right, timeliness is hugely important. Accuracy is just as important. So Kelly kind of alluded to this, that we have a lot of different edit types, which allow us to do lots of different logic loops. Again, if you've looked at any of these policies, sometimes they're nice and straightforward and you just have here's the procedure, here's the diagnosis codes we cover. But frequently, a single policy is going to cover multiple different clinical scenarios. Now, what a lot of folks have done with these is to one of two things. They either pick the top scenario and display results for that, or they give you basically a warning, a yellow light, because they can't display all the results. So it'll come up and tell you that there's some result there, but they can't break it down to tell you whether or not your situation actually meets medical necessity. So that can cost you in either guessing whether your warning light meets, or more likely, somebody's going to have to go out there and do the research on that to see whether or not that actually meets medical necessity. Right, so I pulled up an example of one of these policies. EPO-Eaton, if we have any clinical people out there, they probably just cringed, because this has a lot of different clinical scenarios for coverage. So you can see, and I couldn't pull up the whole policy, obviously, but this policy goes one direction, essentially, if you have an end-stage renal disease patient on dialysis. There's another scenario for if you have a chronic kidney disease patient not on dialysis. You have a third scenario down here for if you have a patient with anemia that relates to use of AZT for HIV infection. So all of those different directions this policy could go, we are capable of breaking that down to show you all of those results in one. So let's just take an example of that and take a look at that in our UI. So I'm following that same policy through. So I've got my EPO-Eaton out here. I can see exactly what that is. And I've put a diagnosis code out here for anemia and chronic kidney disease. You can see clearly I've got a red bar there, but I have helpful information here to tell me why do I have a red bar out there? So you can see it's telling me that I've got a diagnosis code that meets part of the medical necessity, but not all of it. I need a second diagnosis code in order to meet this medical necessity. And the policy is always reviewable right here under the I if you want to do that. But we're trying to keep you from having to do that as much as possible. So the other thing that we do is we break out the helpful information into sections so that you can get to hopefully what is pertinent information for you without having to wade through the entire policy, although you can if you choose. Okay, so now I've taken my D63.1 and I added an appropriate secondary diagnosis to it, and you can see that I have turned green now with that scenario. It tells me that I've now met medical necessity. And again, I've got this other helpful information because this is a really complex policy. So it's also going to give me some helpful information, such as I need to have a modifier on this code, and I can only bill this 13 times within 30 days or 14 times within 31 days. So just helping to get you to that information. I'm sure everybody out there is aware that these policies are just getting more and more complex. It used to be a diagnosis code and that's all they wanted. Well, now they want to make sure that you've met all of the utilization. They want to make sure you have appropriate documentation, that you have tried other therapies in some cases. They're just adding more and more to these all the time. All right, and I am now going to talk about single source, right? Number 3, that is fairly important. So another important part of what we do is maintain everything. We have over 175 public and proprietary data sources that can all be accessed through our knowledge base. All of your regulatory content that you would need can come from a single vendor, which just helps. You know, you're not going to have to go out and search the CMS website and then worry about heading over to the AMA website and AHA. It's all in one place for you. All right. At Vitalware, we also have a team of dedicated experts that help with this. So we have an amazing team of content professionals that all have multiple years of experience in the healthcare environment. So what's important about this? I mean, of course you want experts, right? Everybody has experts. Everybody thinks they're the best at what they do. What I think sets us apart in particular is that the folks that are actually writing these edits have the clinical experience, but they are also the ones that are going to answer your questions. So we're going to take a look here in just a second at how we actually let you view these edits so you can see what we've done. We basically give you a behind the scenes look into what we do. Should you have any questions about that though, we also allow you to ask questions right there, and you don't have to dial an 800 number and get somebody that's going to transfer you to somebody else that knows. That actually gets you right to our content experts who wrote these edits. So we have very aggressive support SLAs because we know that if this medical necessity isn't right for you, you need answers to it right away. You can't, oh, we'll get back to you in 3 or 4 days. That doesn't really work. Another thing that sets us apart is this direct access to Policy Manager. And I'm going to show you in just a second here what that is. But Policy Manager is basically where we write our edits and come up with these complex logic loops. So we're back to our old friend there, this policy for the EPO-EATN. And this is actually in our site how we've built all this. So you can see all of these different categories that Kelly was talking about earlier. All of these different categories, that doesn't mean anything to you, but it does to us, and it allows us to take that policy and dissect it based on the clinical scenario and essentially send it different ways based on what codes we find on the claim. So this is, you can see, what have we got here? We have 10 active edits right now for that particular policy. Now, any one of these I could click into and get into, and I'm going to stick with the example that we had looked at there. This is the behind the scenes look into how we do this. So you can see that for this particular edit, if it has one of these CPT codes, it's going to require this plus one of these and one of these modifiers. So I'm not in the live system here. Obviously, this is a presentation, but we do have a help button essentially down here. So if you happen to be out and you're reviewing this edit and you're like, well, I don't think this is quite right. I think they're missing in 18.6. You can actually click that button. We'll see which edit you're talking about. You would just type in a little, you know, why you think, I think you're missing in 18.6. And that goes immediately over to those content experts that we were talking about to review that for you. So it just gives you that behind the scenes look. You don't have to just guess and see what it is that we're looking for. We're going to tell you right here what it is that we're looking for. I think it's hugely important. So, all right. And I believe with that, I am going to turn it back over to Kelly to talk about our customized data delivery.
Yes, thank you. And any of you folks that do work with Jennifer's team, you know, her team and her are rock stars, and that's we're very fortunate to have this group of people. One of the things that I think also differentiates us is, if you go to the next slide, our ability to deliver the data in a flexible and customized way. For our hospital customers, we typically provide Code Validate, which is our validation engine, as a part of our Vital Knowledge application, which again, we have over 26,000 users. We also now are providing data files that are formatted for your patient accounting system, like Epic. We can embed that information in Epic. One of the challenges that we see all the time is the difference between the ABN, the encoder, all giving different results on the medical necessity, especially some of the convoluted ones where we, you know, again, 3D versus 1D. And we're able to take the medical necessity data and embed it into your existing patient accounting system. For our vendor partners, we provide real-time APIs taking advantage of the real-time updates that Jennifer's team does. So if they get new update information on Thursday, they go through the QA process and publish it on Monday. That's real time. You don't have to wait until the next month or however your current vendor provides you that data. That is real time, giving our vendor partners the ability to put forth the most current and accurate information. We also provide them the pop-up HTML controls where, similar to our code validate application, it allows the vendors to be able to have their users interact with that tool where they pass us the code information, we pop them up the results, and allows the end user to interact. And we also are able to do customized raw data in any format you pretty much need or want, flattening the file or going into the 3D mode if your databases can handle that. So we meet with each of our customers and we're able to accommodate their needs. We've seen one data set, we've seen one data set. Trusted by the marketplace, we have over 700 million claims being processed with our edits annually, from the very large clearinghouses to 900 hospitals that use our content daily. Again, we're very proud of our best-in-class designation for our charge master, which is powered by all of our content. With that, I think we'll open up to Q&A if anybody has any questions. Again, please post those questions and we'll answer them as they come.
I don't see any questions at this time, so we'll give everyone a few minutes to ensure that we address any questions you may have.
Well, we wanted to make sure we kept at exactly a half hour, so I think we're doing pretty good.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I do not have a question coming through the Q&A portion. If you do have questions following this webinar, please feel free to reach out. We will be sending a follow-up email, which will include a copy of the receipts.
Looks like we do have one.
Oh, it's in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm on the questions tab. It says, would you please show how to find the ESA info again?
How to find it? I'm not exactly, if that means in our product or I'm at a bit of a loss there. If you were looking in our product, this is our current UI, and the policy is actually available right here under that I information. You could actually get to read the entire policy. I'm not sure if that answers that question, but that's my, if not, let us know.
It says, how did you get to that point?
Oh, okay. Well, I got to that point for the purposes of this demo by entering, I don't, in our system, you would enter in the procedure code and the diagnosis codes that you have. And this is our results panel that I'm displaying here. So you would just be entering all of the procedures that you were doing that you wanted to check medical necessity on, and it will bring up this results panel for all of the procedures that you are looking at.
If you have access to vital knowledge, you would go to the menu and pull down code validate and then select LCD, NCD, put in your codes, and you're going to get this display. If you have any additional questions on how to get there, please contact your account manager. should be more than happy, or he'll be more than happy to walk you through that. I hope that answered your question.
All right, that seems to be the end of the questions. I do know who had that comment, so we'll be happy to follow up as well.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you.
If you were on the beginning of the webinar, Tori did mention that he'll be sending out a copy of this, the recording, as well as the slide deck, and we'll have some contact information in there as well. Tori, do you have anything else for closing?
Yeah, just a couple quick comments. So first, thank you everyone for your time today. I hope you found it informative. As mentioned earlier, we will be posting the recording of the presentation as well as a copy of the deck to our webinar page, probably within the next day or two. If you'd like more information on anything you saw today, feel free to reach out to your Vitalware account manager, or feel free to browse or chat with us on our website at vitalware.com. And if you make it to our site, at the very bottom of the page, you can sign up for Vitalware's new newsletter, The Mid, where we will share the latest and greatest content related to the mid-revenue cycle. You can find that sign-up form at the bottom of any page on our website. So thank you again for your time today. This concludes our presentation. Goodbye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.